Hello Flosstube friends, thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be a simple stitch with me video. I don't have any particular specialty stitches to go over today. I'll save that for other videos in the future. And of course I have already put out several, so if you're interested, you can take a look at the other videos available on my channel. I also have regular Flosstube videos, and you can expect another one of those in probably just a couple weeks, maybe sooner if I can get my act together. But today I am seriously just going to sit and chat, put a couple lengths of floss into my cute little fox here, and hopefully keep you company while you're working on a project that you're excited about. This is Rainard, one of the animal crackers from Stacy Nash. She has produced a bunch of these now and actually released several just earlier this year, just earlier this month, actually, this being March 2026. This is one of the older charts. I think this is at least a couple years old, and one that I have had in my stash for at least a year, but I think it's actually been a bit longer than that. Now you can see that my whip here looks a lot like the cover photo, but I have actually done a Roxy Floss co-conversion. So we'll talk a little bit about that as I go along. I'll give you my conversion so that you can purchase the Roxy Floss if you so choose. But of course, you could just use the called for threads, which are absolutely beautiful. So Rainard here is a nice little piece to start with. I actually expected this to be quite a bit bigger than it is, but I am so glad it's so small because I did all that you see here in less than 24 hours. And after having spent about a week on a very large project and only making a bit of progress relatively on that large project, because it is so large, it's nice to see such great progress on a project like this. Now I am stitching Rainard on a piece of 40 count Little Bunny from XJU Design. It's a nice warm neutral. I have stitched a few other animal crackers on this linen as well, and I think it works well for all palettes. So I just had this one little scrap left. I thought it would be perfect for Rainard here. As I said though, he is smaller than expected. The stitch count on Rainard is 49 by 114. So on my 40 count linen, it's going to be about 2.5 by 6, just under 6. So a nice size actually for an animal cracker. I have stitched several of these now, and by far the largest one is Sugar the Skunk. Absolutely enormous. I don't know why it's so much bigger than all the other ones, but it's so cute. So it was very worth the extra stitching time that it required to finish Sugar the Skunk. But if you undertake that skunk, just know that it is not going to go as quickly as Rainard the Fox or Lily the Frog. That one went so quickly. I'm excited to stitch that one again. I have already stitched it once, but gave it away as a gift. So I'm going to stitch it again for myself, and I might change the color of the dress. I'm not quite sure. I haven't gotten that far. But let's talk about Rainard here. I'm going to load up my needle with a strand of Roxy here. Now you can see I've got all of my Roxy Floss on a ring. I guess I could show you the called for. So when I ordered this chart, I did order all of the called for floss. These are the Weeks Dye Works colors, and I was very ready to use these Weeks Dye Works, but since I purchased these flosses and the chart, I have fallen hard for Roxy Floss, and I have accumulated quite a large collection. So I thought that I could actually very easily do a conversion for this, and I have. Now, there's nothing wrong with these weeks, but I'm gonna go ahead and give them to a Weeks loving friend, and I know she will be delighted. And I get to use Roxy, which isn't necessarily more exciting, but to me it is. I really love the flosses. They're nice to use. They have really nice saturated colors, and there are a wide variety of colors available in their regular catalog, although I do also have several one-of-a-kind colors that are either like weird off dyes or have been part of the one-of-a-kind Floss Club collection. So for Rainard's body here, which is what I'm going to work on right now for his fur, this reddish orange color, the call for is Carolina Cecil, and going through my Roxy Floss Co., I originally pulled, I think it was Clownfish, which is a deep, dark pumpkin orange. I really like that. But when I was looking at Carolina Cecil again, I realized that Clay Pot here is a pretty darn good match for that. This is one of a kind. It's from the October of 2025 pack, and it looks great. I think I would have been happy with Clownfish. He would have been a little more orange. He would have been a little brighter. And I do think I would have liked that. But I also really like how Stacy's model looks. And so I'm happy with this color combination. So let me pull off just a strand. If you are not familiar with how to use floss drops, it's very easy. You gotta make sure that the skein is cut at the bottom. You can either wind it and cut it, wind it on a thread winder and cut it so that every length is even. Or when you get a new skein and you find the loops at the bottom, you can just cut through those loops and you'll get pretty even lengths. It's fine, it all works. But pulling a single strand off of your skein, off of the floss drop is very easy. Just kind of pluck one out with your needle and then go ahead and pull it. That's all there is to it. Very easy. So this is Clay Pot, as I said. This is one of a kind, but they do list their extra flosses on the website. So this may still be available in limited quantities. And by they, I mean Evertote.ca. They are the exclusive retailer of Roxy Floss Co. threads and fabrics. They sell linen, even weave, and Aida, and then have hundreds of over-dyed cotton flosses in their catalog. Lots to choose from, and then they have a lot of conversions available on the website, so you don't even have to do the work yourself. But then if you're looking to have a conversion done for a chart that has not been listed, you can reach out to the staff there and they're happy to help you. But something like this, I could do the conversion myself. It was pretty easy and actually really fun. I like going through my stash to see what I have, to kind of remind myself of what I have and use it. And you know, it's good to use the stash that you have. And this has proven to be, this Clay Pot has proven to be a really nice choice for Rainard's fur here because it is variegated. So there's some dimension to it. There's variation in the color. You've got light spots and dark spots, but it is subtle. So it looks very natural. For another animal cracker I did, Henny Penny, which you may have seen if you are a regular viewer of my Flosstube episodes. I changed her colors completely. I think Henny Penny originally was stitched in charcoal and grits or something like that. And instead of charcoal for the outline of that chicken, I used truffle, which is a warm brown. And then the feathers I did in various warm tones, tans, light browns, and even a brownish pink for that. But for Rainard here, I was looking at the cover photo and I thought, well, I could really change it up. You know, I could use Clownfish and I could use bolder colors, different colors. I could change how his overalls look, but actually I do like the model. I like the color combination and the overall look to it. So I decided to do as true a conversion as I could with the colors available to me in my stash of Roxy Floss. And I'm very happy with it, actually. I know that for the brown here, the light brown, that kind of outlines Rainard, kind of shadows some areas. I think the called for, what was the called for? Swiss chocolate And from the Roxy Floss Co. line, I chose, let's see, Frangelico. Frangelico, very nice warm medium tone brown. And for the dark brown, which is up here, the line of his ears, I chose Kisses, which is part of the most recent one-of-a-kind floss pack I received back in February. Now his, let's see, yeah, his whiskers here, his whiskers and the lines on his mouth and chin and these little lines up here that kind of give him some expression, kind of like eyebrows-ish. Those are charted. I want to make sure I'm telling you the correct information. Yes, that's charted to be all in mascara, which is the black color. But I chose actually to do it in Kisses, the dark brown. And I really like how it looks. So even when you're doing a conversion that you want to be very close or as true as possible to the original, you can still mix things up, change things in small ways. And the eyes as well, you can see each eye has one single stitch of white. And in the chart, that is supposed to be the same white or off-white as is what's in the ears and on the chest. But I decided to pull a single strand of Betty White, which is a very bright white, and I stitched that single stitch there in the Betty White, which is much brighter than what I chose for the inside of the ears and the chest, which is French Vanilla. And I not only chose a brighter white, but I also, instead of just putting in a single cross stitch, I actually put in a teeny tiny road stitch, which is not difficult. A road stitch, basically you are filling all of the holes, all of the thread holes, or all the holes on the linen, I should say, and you are going around. So from bottom left to top right, and then from left middle to right middle, and then top left to bottom right, and then top middle to bottom middle. So you are laying legs that go from one side to the opposite side, and you kind of go around. It kind of fans out, and it's more noticeable. The stitch itself looks like what it is when it's larger, when it's over 4, because then you've got more linen threads to work with and you will be laying more legs. I didn't choose to put a road stitch in because I wanted it to look like a road stitch. I just chose to put in a road stitch because then I would be putting in 4 legs instead of 2 and really covering the entire area very well. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted it to be very bold, very white, and look shining. Another thing you can do on your animal crackers to make their eyes look a little bolder is you can actually stitch with 2 strands of the black for their eyes. Now, if you are stitching on 32 count or 28 count, you're probably using 2 stitches or 2 strands of thread anyway. So you of course would have to use even more than that to give it a bolder look, to make it look different than all of the other stitches. But there are things like that that you can do to highlight different areas if you so choose. Now, right now I am just going back and forth with my clay pot here. When I started the shoulders here, I was actually moving outward from the center. So I had started clay pot and moved this way. And I realized that running lengths of thread, like running stitches up and down like that, because I work in the Danish method, I do a complete row of half stitches and then go back the other way with the top leg of the stitches. I think my stitches look neater that way than if I stitch in the English method, which is laying each stitch completely individually before moving on to the next spot. But I realized that moving outward, I didn't want really long lines going up and down. So after putting in these first 2 rows of clay pot for his shoulder, I actually had come down and gone out and then up and then out and then up and kind of filled in his shoulder in a way that would make it look natural. So now that I've gotten past that area, I'm just moving downward with horizontal rows. I do need to count. I'm supposed to have 9 in this area. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this row here will be just as long as the other ones, or will meet the edge of the other ones above it. But then the next row is going to be a little bit shorter. This will be animal cracker number what? 8, I think. I stitched 5 and had those 5 finished. And since then I have finished Henny Penny, the chicken, and Sugar the skunk. But Sugar the skunk took so long. So much stitching. It was really easy though, because there weren't a lot of small little details. There wasn't a lot of color changes. I mean, it was basically 4 colors. It was like pick a black, pick a white, pick a sweater color, and then, yeah, actually that was it. And then like little bits on the face, right? But yeah, very simple. And actually I chose not to stitch the design that Stacy had made on the sweater on Sugar, like the little deer and the snowflakes and stuff. I just made the sweater one color. But it looks really cute, and I used a speckled floss from Roxy Floss. If you want to see those 2 finishes, you can check out my last Flosstube video, and I will link that below. Okay, so let me make sure I am indeed in the right spot. Yep, just supposed to be 4 there. And then moving on, I've got 2 more rows of 4 stitches. And I'm actually almost done in this area with clay pot, because it looks like little Rainard here is tucking his hands, his little paws, into his pockets on his overalls. You'll notice that his straps here that I have already put in, I've done in the darker blue. The chart and the cover model call for the lighter blue on the straps, but because the edging of the overalls, as well as the trim on the bottom and the pockets, are all done in the darker blue, I felt that the darker blue was the natural choice for the straps as well. So I went ahead and put those in with the darker blue. And the called for is Michael's Navy, and I chose Navy Train. And then the lighter blue, just kind of like a dusty gray blue, the called for is Weeks Dye Works King Mackerel, and I chose Roxy Floss code Drizzle. And I do think both Navy Train and Drizzle are available in the regular catalog on Evertote.ca. You'd have to check that out. I will link that website below though. So if you are interested, if you've never tried Roxy Floss, but you are interested to give them a go, you can take a look there and maybe pick out a pack or 2. Okay, so I have 3 rows of 4 stitches, and then I have 1 row of 3 stitches. Pretty simple counting here on these animal crackers, which is why I love them. I mean, Lily the frog especially was really easy. I think the most complicated thing on her was like the little band that went around the waist of her dress, but she was easy and fun, so quick to stitch up. So I'm really looking forward to stitching that one again. I did a Roxy Floss conversion for that one as well, and I remember I used Hide and Seek for her body, and it was the most perfect green color. I just love it. I love it. Okay, so next row is going to be 4 stitches. It'll be nice if I have just enough of this strand to finish this little section. I love it when it works out that way. It's so annoying when you get almost done with a section of one color and you just can't quite make it with the strand that you have going. If it's really close, then I'll really try to stretch it, but if I know I'm not going to make it, then I don't put myself out trying to get absolutely every stitch out of a strand that I can. Okay, and then we've got 3, 3, and 1, and that's it. But you can see that I am stitching in the Danish method as I talked about. So you lay just the first leg of stitches down and then go back the other way. Whenever possible, I stitch this way. If it does make sense to lay stitches individually, then I will do that, but it's not my favorite. And that's another thing that you can do. If you do stitch in the English method and you do lay your stitches individually, completely, then when working on a rounded area like his shoulder here, you of course could have just done this all diagonally. And then when you got down to here, you can move to putting in your stitches horizontally, or you can still continue diagonally. It doesn't matter. It is whatever works for you, whatever feels most natural to you. That's how you should stitch. All right, so I've got one more little stitch to put in. And then this is great. I can maybe put in his pocket. I think that's what I'll do. Okay, I am going to double check though that I have everything I'm supposed to. So it does look like I've got that in correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a turn. Just burying my thread under some stitches that I have already laid. You don't have to do a ton, but I usually like to go under at least 3 or 4 stitches one way and then either loop back the other way or kind of go side to side, perpendicular I should say, just so that I feel it's really secure. And I can trim my floss. We're good to go. All right, let me real quick go through the floss colors that I have chosen so you get all of them together. I will list these below so that you can find it there, but sometimes it's nice just to hear it out loud. I have chosen Chalkboard in place of mascara, Navy Train for the dark blue, Drizzle, as I said, for the light. French Vanilla is what I have replaced grits with, and then Cremini is what I use to replace Fawn. So this is what is on his face here. Frangelico for the medium brown, Kisses for the dark brown, Clay Pot for his fur, and then Croquette, you really just need a tiny little bit of pink. So whatever light blush peachy pink you have to put in, I think it's just 6 stitches here and 6 stitches here, and then there are some longer stitches put over to look like little hairs. That's it. That's all you're doing with the pink. So just pull something from your stash for that. I'm sure we all have Sanguine, which is what the called for is, or something similar. But now I'm going to go ahead and pull. Let's work with some of the navy now, just so you guys can see that. It's a really nice, really bold, highly saturated navy. I think it looks really nice up against Rainard's fur. Help if I find the eye of the needle. There we go. Trying to put it into the other end doesn't really work, does it? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna start here. And as you can see, starting a thread, I just leave a tail up on the front of the fabric, and then I can secure it as I go. You do have to make sure that it is indeed secured on that first, yep, and I got it, on that first stitch. And there are plenty of times where I think I've got it, and then I go ahead and tighten that first stitch, and of course it pops right out. But that's okay, easy fix. You can also, if you're just holding your hoop in hand or stitching in hand, you can always flip over. And I can flip this as well, but pretty good at this point about securing my thread without flipping it. Kind of scoop from the bottom to make sure that I have that secured. Okay, I think it's just, yep, 5 stitches here. So it looks like I've got 5. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this tail to the back. There we go, because I don't want to see that on the front. And then I'm gonna go back this way. There we go. Looks like I've got, I guess 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just want to double check. You know, if you make a small mistake on these, it's really not the end of the world. But I'd rather get it right. So Rainard here has little pockets on his overalls. Very cute. Very stripy pants. I wonder how many, you know, I haven't actually counted. Stacy has so many animal cracker patterns available now, and it seems like she keeps pumping them out. I think she's realized that, oh yeah, these are popular. I should make more of these. And she's such a good designer. I mean, everything that comes out, we all go bonkers for them. All right, and this line is going to extend 3 stitches farther. Now this pocket here, it actually does intersect, it does touch some of the vertical stripes. So of course I could, when I get to a place where there is a vertical navy stripe, I could actually just continue up there, but I'm not gonna bother with that. There is effectively a second row of navy that goes up here. And so what I'm going to do when I get to that part is I will put in the stripes and then continue across, putting in stripes, and use that to allow me to move to the side. I don't need to put those stripes in right now. I'm just gonna focus on the pocket and make sure I've got that in correctly. But yeah, Stacy has put out so many animal crackers over the past several years. My favorite that she came out with at market was definitely the goose. And I know that before she actually released photos of what would be all of her market releases, she posted a kind of grainy photo, kind of a fuzzy, blurry, out of focus, far away photo of that goose. And oh my goodness, so cute. We could tell it was so cute, even in that fuzzy photo. And I remember when that came up that day, I had watched Aristocats with my son, Morris. He loves the Aristocats. So we were watching that. And of course, if you've seen that movie, you probably remember Amelia and Abigail the geese, and then their Uncle Waldo. And they have to go to Paris to find Uncle Waldo. And it's just such a funny part of the movie. And they're kind of teaching Duchess and the kittens and Thomas O'Malley to think goose and walk like geese. And that's how they're going to get to Paris. And they did it. They did it. They got to Le Petit Café and found Uncle Waldo, who was 3 sheets to the wind. But anyway, so I thought, oh my goodness, how cute would it be to stitch Stacy Nash's little goose in the dress that is charted, but also to somehow give her a little bonnet. The geese in the Aristocats, they are not wearing dresses, but they each have a bonnet. Amelia and Abigail, one has a blue bonnet and one has a pink bonnet, and then Uncle Waldo has he has a top hat that has seen better days. So it needs a little TLC, but so does Uncle Waldo. Anyway, so I was thinking to, if not stitch 2 geese and put bonnets on them, to perhaps stitch 2 geese and stitch one with a pink dress as charted, a pink check dress is what Stacy has come up with, and then stitch another one with a blue check dress. I think that would be so cute. It's funny though, because one of Stacy's other market releases this year was a goat, and she named it Abigail. And I was like, oh, well, how funny would it have been if she had named her goose Amelia? Then she really would have had an Amelia and an Abigail. But the goose, alas, was not named Amelia. But I can call it that. I call my Henny Penny Gertie. You know, these are little things. We change the clothing color. We change sometimes the clothing completely. We give them different names. We give them personalities. It's fun. It's fun. Little Rainard here is so cute though. So much smaller than I expected, honestly. I really thought this was going to be a big one. All right, let's see. 1, 2. Yeah, so I'm just going to continue down straight on this side for quite a while. Looks like about 10 rows down that way. And now this row is going to extend 1 stitch farther to the right, is what I'm seeing. Stacy Nash's charts are in black and white, but they are printed rather large and they're very clear. So I have no trouble reading them, and I've never had a problem misreading the symbols, you know, confusing one thing for another. I think her charting is very clear. But if you have never stitched a Stacy Nash chart, you know, maybe pick out one, give it a go, see how you feel about it. She has a lot of smalls, which are great. She has a lot of large pieces as well, but I think some of her best designs are small, which is nice, honestly, because I'm one who stitches samplers, some of them very large, and so it's nice to have things like this that can be finished in just a few days. Okay, I want to make sure I am indeed doing the right thing. Yes, just plugging along here. I want to make sure that, because I'm talking, I am indeed putting in the correct number of stitches. If you are considering kitting something up with Roxy Floss, I would definitely encourage you to do that, especially if you have a bunch in your stash. You know, just whether it's Roxy Floss or it's some kind of special silk or other over-dyed cottons that you haven't put to use, you know, instead of just pulling or ordering the called for whatever project it is that you're going to be working on. I mean, check your stash, see if there's something that will work in place of the called for, so you don't have to order thread that you don't necessarily need. Or, you know, you can always choose something completely different that you might like better. Maybe you're not a navy person, but you really like foxes, so you want to give Rainard here purple overalls. That would be really cute. Purple and orange go well together. You don't have to do what the pattern tells you. When I started stitching though, I definitely thought that, like, you have to follow the instructions and use the same fabric and use the same threads. But I thankfully very quickly realized that actually I feel I have the confidence and the desire to make my own thread choices, and certainly my own fabric choices. Oftentimes I will use the called for threads, but I will select a different fabric than what the model has been stitched on. I believe that a lot of the Animal cracker models were stitched on 36 count with 1 strand of floss. Depending on, depending on the floss fabric combination, you might get a kind of a lacy coverage, but I know that Picture This Plus and some other fabrics run a little bit tighter, so that might actually be your ideal combination, 36 and one strand of floss. But also there are some people who use 1 strand of floss on 32. I've talked about this quite a bit in recent videos. Just use the fabric and floss combination that works best for you, whether it's a little bolder or a little lacier than the model or what everybody else does. If you like it, then it's the right choice. For me, for these animal crackers, I really like 1 strand of floss on 40 count. I think it's a great combination. I get nice coverage. Underneath the navy here, you can see a little bit of the fabric underneath. That doesn't bother me. I actually wouldn't want to stitch him on 46 count to get bolder coverage. That would be really small. He would be very tiny. And I definitely don't want to use 2 strands of floss. I did, when I first started stitching, use 2 strands of floss on 32 count. I stitched a few things and I think the coverage is great, but the ease of stitching with 1 strand of floss is so great that I am not going back. I'm not going back to 2 strands. And I know that's what a lot of people find as well. People who stick with 2 strands love the boldness, but people who have tried both and have landed on 1 strand often say it's because it's just so much easier. I am using a 28 count Colonial Petite needle here. It's a very nice small little needle. I find it works well for any count and any thread. I have no issues. And because it is smaller than your typical 28 tapestry, it is easy to bury your tails under stitches that you have already laid on the back. Okay, I need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 10. And how many do I have already? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I do have a ways to go. I may not actually get the full pocket out of 1 thread here. Not sure. I can usually get about 60 to 65 stitches. I can sometimes squeeze a couple more out of 1 18-inch length of floss on 40 count. Now, of course, if you stitch on 36 count, 1 length of floss is going to get you fewer stitches. And you could also stitch with cotton on 46 count. I have done that. It's fine, works fine. And you would get maybe a few more stitches on 46 count because the stitches are smaller. And so your thread travels less distance over that higher count fabric. Let's see though. Yeah, because this is 9 stitches wide. So this pocket here is probably close to 100 stitches. So I'll definitely have to wrap this up when it is comfortable for me to do so. And I'm not going to try to get an entire pocket out of this 1 strand of thread because it just won't be possible. So no reason to strain myself. But it does look really nice. I think actually next I'm going to put in a strand of the Drizzle, the lighter blue, just because I want to see what that looks like. I haven't actually used that color yet. I just wound it earlier today on my thread winder and trimmed it to get those nice even lengths at 18 inches. And yeah, I haven't seen it on any fabric. So I think it's a nice substitution for king mackerel. I was considering sort of a more medium tone blue with this navy train, thinking that perhaps I would like it better than the high contrast of the light blue and the navy, but I decided to stick with it. And I do actually think it's gonna look really nice. So I'm excited to get that in. All right, I think I'm going to end this thread when I get to the end of this row. I think that'll be a good place to stop. And then I can also wrap things up with you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some good stitching in. If you are interested in other videos on my channel, please check those out. I have a lot of regular Flosstube episodes, and then I also have some Stitch With Me videos like this one. And I also have videos that cover specific specialty stitches, such as Algerian eyelets, Smyrna crosses, even stitching over one, things like that. So I hope you'll check that out. And if you have any questions or comments, please drop those below. You can also find me on Instagram at Stitch Stitch Bead, and I will leave my email address down below if you would prefer to get a hold of me that way. But thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Happy stitching!